Hello, welcome to Papa Nick's Music. I am, as always, your host, Papa Nick Lewis, and today we've got another Top 10 Favorites video. This week we're counting down our Top 10 Favorite Soundtracks here at Papa Nick's Music. I always exclude soundtracks anytime I'm doing anything else, if I'm doing an album ranking or whatever. Because soundtracks, they're like Christmas albums, they're like live albums. They don't really play nice with with the others. It has never seemed to me to be fair to try to compare a soundtrack with a regular, just normal, everyday album. And so I always exclude them from those videos. But that doesn't mean we don't love our soundtracks, because we do love our soundtracks here at Papa Nick's Music. And this week, I'm giving you my top 10 favorite soundtracks. Now, I'm interpreting the term soundtrack pretty loosely today. We are including some actual honest-to-God soundtracks, main title and closing title and all of that stuff. We're also including some albums that are music from the soundtrack, songs that were featured in the movie, but not the orchestral backdrop of the movie. And there are a couple of these in here that are Broadway cast albums. Ooh, that tingling in the force that I just felt is my wife being excited that we're talking about Broadway cast albums in this installment. So we've got a variety of different kinds of soundtracks, but they are all soundtracks. So before we get into the top 10, let's talk about the criteria real quick. I've got two of them for the favorites series. Criterion number 1, the work itself has to be attached to me. I'm inspired by it. It's wormed its way into my life. It's wormed its way into my psyche, right? It is one of my favorites. But it also has to be, criterion number 2, an album that I own. I have to have gone out of my way to obtain a copy of this thing. For it to really count as one of my favorites, I have to own it. So I'm limiting myself to the albums that I have, either on CD or on vinyl or on cassette or digital downloads, whatever. These are all albums and CDs. But I own all of these, right? Cool. We also, because this is an evaluative exercise, we have to include the subjectivity notice. Artistic appreciation is an inherently subjective thing, we believe here at Papa Nick's Music. There's no such thing as objectively good or objectively bad art. There's only art that I like and art that I do not. And as long as we keep that in mind, this is a wonderful conversation. It's roses and puppies and sunshine. It only goes off the rails when somebody in the conversation insists on being right, objectively, provably right. So let's not do that. I'm not making any objective claims about any of these albums. I'm just telling you these are my 10 favorites, okay? You may like some of these. You may despise some of these. It may be that you can't believe that I skipped over, X or Y album soundtrack. If you've got a soundtrack that you think I should have considered, hey, drop that note down below. Get this conversation going. I always love hearing from you. Finally, before we get into the soundtracks themselves, because this is a top 10 series, Papa Nick's top 10 videos are unofficially sponsored by Schöfferhofer beer. If you like Hefeweizen beer and grapefruit soda, you'll love Schöfferhofer. That's good beer. And I'm recording this very early in the afternoon, so it's going to be a good night. Okay, are we ready? Oh, we are ready. And before I get into the top 10, I've got an honorable mention here. This soundtrack was never a legitimate contender to be included in my top 10, but it is one of my favorite soundtracks, so I feel like I have to include it. I was in high school when this movie was re-released, so we're talking a long time ago. And I went to see this movie. I didn't really know anything about it. I mean, I knew the names of some of the people involved, but I wasn't as big a fan of comedy then as I am now. And so I didn't have much in the way of expectation going into it. From the opening scene, though, I knew I was in for a treat. And I ended up laughing harder at this movie, I think, than any movie I've ever seen in a theater. I almost pissed my pants laughing at part of it. And of course, I am talking about, there we go, Young Frankenstein. Oh, it still has the used bookstore price tag on it. I bought this album almost entirely because, almost exclusively because it has on side 2, where is it? There it is. Introduction and Putting on the Ritz. In the movie, when the monster sings his part of Putting on the Ritz, I almost pissed myself laughing at that. So, honorable mention goes to Young Frankenstein. I love this album. But I like it because that one thing makes me laugh. It's not like it's great music to listen to. The rest of these, I like the music. Okay, coming in at number 10, we're kicking off the top 10 proper. This is one of those songs from, it's labeled as the motion picture soundtrack, but it's mostly songs from. And this is Joe Jackson's soundtrack to Mike's Murder. I knew I wanted to include one of Joe's 2 soundtracks, either this or Tucker. I've got both of them. And I decided to go with this one because this is the one I've actually listened to more frequently. I like the songs on this. Particularly like the first side. The second side is, but I really like the first side. Good music. I've never seen the movie. I don't care to see the movie. I am willing to bet $50 if I saw the movie, the only thing I would like would be the little snippets of the few songs from this album that actually appear in the movie. So I've already got the best part of the movie. Mike's Murder, soundtrack by Joe Jackson. At number 10. At number 9, people of a certain age, we know certain cinematic themes. The opening to Jaws, right? Everybody who is a certain age remembers that thing. And we remember, everybody who's younger than us remembers it as well, but they don't remember it with the visceral reaction that we remember it with. In that category, we've got Raiders of the Lost Ark. John Williams did a wonderful score for Raiders of the Lost Ark. I love this album. I love listening to this music. I love the movie itself. It's fun. Number 9, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Number 8, I cannot possibly have a soundtrack video that I could do that wouldn't feature Randy Newman. And so, yeah, I've got a couple of Randy Newman soundtracks on here. The man knows how to write a soundtrack. And first up, we've got at number 8, one of his more recognizable soundtracks, that is The Natural. I really like the music on this. The only reason it's coming in at number 8 instead of higher on the list is that it's, how can I say this nicely? I'm aware that he is pressing emotional buttons in this soundtrack. Now, that's kind of what a soundtrack is supposed to do. So I don't really mean for that to seem like a criticism. The fact that he's pressing buttons is not the criticism. It's the fact that I can tell that he's pressing the buttons. Takes some of the bloom off of it for me. But overall, the music on this is just fantastic, man. I can put this thing on and just float away. I like the soundtrack much better than I liked the movie. Movie was okay. Soundtrack's fantastic. The Natural, at number 8 by Randy Newman. Okay, at number 7, he said, taking a restorative sip of Schofferhofer. That's good beer. At number 7, speaking of people of a certain age, there was a certain period of time where if you mentioned the idea that you were going to listen to a movie soundtrack, it was just an automatic assumption. There's only one soundtrack that anybody is ever going to want to listen to, and that is, of course, Saturday Night Fever. I love this album. I was highly upset one day when my brother traded my copy of this to one of his friends for, I would remember what he traded it for, Ted Nugent or something. It wasn't even a good album that he traded it for. Pissed me off something big. I ended up having to go out and get another copy of Saturday Night Fever because, federal law mandated in the late 70s, every household had to have at least one copy of Saturday Night Fever. And I love the music on this thing. I have always been an unabashed fan of disco. I've talked about this a lot in the summer of the Bee Gees last year. It frustrated me at the time that much of the disco backlash was homophobic and racist. It troubles me to this day that much of the disco backlash was homophobic and racist. And so, hey, man, I'm on board with disco. But number 7, Saturday Night Fever. Number 6, we've got my second of 2 Randy Newman soundtracks. This is my favorite Randy Newman soundtrack, although I like virtually every one of his that I've heard. I don't have copies of all of them. I've got most of them. But the grand champion is his soundtrack for Ragtime. Oh my gosh, is this lovely music. He's pressing those buttons, but I'm not aware of it. I don't see him pressing the button. I can't hear the button as it's being depressed on this one the way I can with the natural. I love Ragtime. This is just, One More Hour is just, it's a heartbreaking song. Change Your Way is a fun little ditty. I love Ragtime. Number 6, excuse me. Okay. Number 5. One of the reasons, one of the things that made me think about doing this, I mentioned earlier that my wife's an actor. She likes Broadway musicals. You can always tell anytime you get in our car, either of our cars, whoever was the last person driving that car, because if the satellite radio is set to 70s on 7 classic vinyl or the bridge, then I was the one driving the car. If it was set on the Broadway channel, she was the one driving the car. And I mentioned just offhand in a conversation, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, that I had this album, that it was one of my favorite soundtracks. And it just amazed her. Her love for me just shot through the roof, because I have an actual honest to God Stephen Sondheim, are you fucking kidding me, cast album. Oh, you better believe when it's Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Oh my God, do I love this album. I can't say I'm a big fan of Stephen Sondheim across the board, but oh my God, do I love this thing. I first became aware of Sweeney Todd because when I was in college, 81, 82, that neighborhood, on Showtime, which we had as part of our cable package at the time, they were showing a production of Sweeney Todd that had been filmed with all of this cast, except instead of Len Cariou, it was George Hearn, I think, who took over for Len Cariou. And I loved it. I loved the music. I loved the story. I thought it was fantastic. And so, yeah, I went out and I found me a copy of the original cast album. And to this day, I love this thing. It's my number 5 favorite soundtrack. Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, primarily featuring Angela Lansbury, whom I love, and Len Cariou, written music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim. Love Sweeney Todd. Okay, coming in at number 4. There's a nostalgic factor going into several of these, right? Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, that was me in high school, me in my early college years. Saturday Night Fever. That's me in high school, right? Sweeney Todd. That's me in college. Well, this next one is me as a little kid, because one of the highlights every year was when It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, would come on TV. And I have always had, since, my college days when I was actually fleshing out my library instead of just, you know, cabbaging, glomming onto the albums that my siblings had bought. Um, I've always tried to find a good version of this music. There are a lot of Vince Guaraldi albums out there that you can get that have music from the specials, but most of that music was re-recorded for that album. Here I'm thinking specifically of Oh Good Grief, which is a Common album, which I've got back there, but I don't want to take the time to go get it. It's got a blue cover and a cartoon of a drawing of Schroeder playing his piano and Snoopy standing next to him with a big Vince Guaraldi mustache. And it's got music from the specials, including Linus and Lucy and The Great Pumpkin Waltz, which are both off of this. But it's not the same. It's not the same as the actual music that was used in the special. This is the actual music that was used in the special. Oh my God, do I love this album. Oh, it's got the music tags that go into and out of the commercials. Oh man. Oh. Everything except the Dolly Madison references. I love this album. Number 4, It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, Vince Guaraldi. Number 3, it doesn't take much. Excuse me. It doesn't take much time to sit and chat with me about movies and music, and movies having to do with music. That's good beer. It doesn't take much time for you to learn that I'm a huge fan of a movie that was released in the 90s. That Thing You Do. Oh my God, do I love this movie. I used to have a band. We played restaurant patios and such around town. And my bassist for that band was also a huge That Thing You Do fan. And so he and I would trade bits of dialogue to one another during practices. I currently play with we're not really a band, we're the same guys who show up to do it. Every other week we get together at a local adult daycare and play music for the customers, the resident. They're not really residents, the clients. I'm not sure what to call them, but the folks that are there. And again, we've got a bass player, and again, he also a big fan of That Thing You Do. So there's something about That Thing You Do and bass players. I love this movie. I love this music. I love this album. The main reason that I got hooked into buying this album was how insanely catchy the title tune is, That Thing You Do, written by Adam Schlesinger from the group Fountains of Wayne. Rest in peace. The rest of the songs that the Wonders, or the Oneaters, depending on where you are in the movie, the rest of the songs that the guys played were written by a variety of writers with whom I am not familiar, and I haven't taken time to track down their stuff. Most of the music that was done by anybody else, by any of the other stars of the Playtone Galaxy, by the other performers at the talent show, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. All of that stuff was written or co-written by Tom Hanks. And this is just, Tom Hanks is, he's one of my heroes, if only for this movie and everything that he put into it. His performance is great, his script is great, his direction is great, the music that he wrote is great. I love That Thing You Do. Number 2, my second Broadway cast album. I have somewhere, I think it's out in storage with the garage. But I've got the movie soundtrack for this. I've got it on cassette. But I'm using the Broadway cast album of Meredith Willson's The Music Man. Oh my God, do I love The Music Man. I love the movie. the a little Buddy Hackett goes a long way, and a little Ron Howard goes a long way as far as his vocal performance goes. But I mean, Robert Preston, come on, jeez, the barbershop quartet whose the name has just slipped my mind. I'll probably have a crawl down below telling you who they are. I love this music. Whether you like the cast album or the movie soundtrack is going to be based on whether you like, what's her name, Barbara Cook or Shirley Jones. Flip a coin. Robert Preston is the draw for both of them. For me, the Barbershop Quartet is also the draw for both of them, and they're on both of them. They're both wonderful. I've got the cast album because the movie soundtrack is buried in debris. But you can't go wrong with either one. You gotta love the Music Man. But my favorite soundtrack album, number 2 was the Music Man. My favorite soundtrack album is one that I think I could be here, for an hour in a live stream, taking guesses. What do you think it's going to be? And nobody is going to get this right. This thing is so far out of left field, it's not even funny. I'm going to hold this thing up, and the overwhelming majority of people who could conceivably see this video, not just the audience that actually does see it, we're talking about the broader world, most of them are not even going to be aware that this thing exists. But I love it. As much as I've listened to the 9, 10, if we count Young Frankenstein, as much as I've listened to all of these, you put all of that combined, and we're getting close to the number of times that I have listened to and enjoyed the soundtrack to the first season of the television series Monk. Music by Jeff Beal. Oh my God, do I love this music. I love Monk. I love the TV show. I think it is wonderfully inventive, wonderfully creative. I like mysteries, so I'm already hooked there. The writing was good. Tony Shalhoub is fantastic. Oh man, Bitty Schramm for the first few seasons, definitely at this point was. I mean, the cast was fantastic. The scripts were good, and the music was good. The first season, the opening theme was different. It was written by Jeff Beal. They switched over to Randy Newman's "It's Jungle Out There" in series 2, season 2. From that point forward, the opening theme was Randy Newman, but Jeff Beal did it in the first season, and Jeff Beal continued to do music for the series through most of the series, if not all of it. But this is music taken from episodes from season 1 of Monk, and it is just fantastic music. Oh, I love listening to Monk. And I almost dropped it on the floor. I love it so much. And those are my 10 favorite soundtracks. What are yours? Is there anything on here that you really like as well? Ooh, let me know down below. Is there stuff on here that you hate? Ooh, let me know down below. If there are other things that you think I could have included, drop that comment below. I always love hearing from you. Thank you very much for sticking it out with me today. I appreciate the company. If you enjoyed the video, and if you're listening this far in, I'm hoping that you're enjoying it. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you'd click the like button. While you're down there, go ahead and click the subscribe button. You might as well. It's free. And click the bell for notifications. It makes a difference for the YouTube folks and the algorithm. Anyway, click all of that stuff. I would appreciate it. In the meantime, thanks again for sticking it out with me today, and I hope that the rest of your day is joyful. See you soon.